Hiya, as always, I'm Paolo, and today I wanted to talk to you about the session players in Logic Pro. I made a video a few weeks ago, and I think there's been some confusion about what the session players are. I do blame Apple because they heavily promoted the session player as an AI function, although there's definitely machine learning involved in making the session players. They're not generative AI the way Google Gemini or ChatGPT or Suno are. You can't really put a prompt in Logic and tell the session players what to do. You still need to know the fundamentals of music and what you want to achieve to get the best out of the session players. Right, I'm just going to use this example of creating an image as an example of the level of control you have with generative AI. So let's say I'm going to tell this to make a backpack. Okay, it's taking its time. It's made a backpack. I'm gonna say make it green, and now suddenly the entire image has changed. So instead of like just changing whatever was there to green, is remade the entire image, making the backpack green. Now if I say change the badge to PM. Once again, for some reason, it's made the flower say PM. It started everything from scratch and remade the image. That means that if you really like something that's been generated, but you just want to change a little part, you can't really do it. You need to regenerate it and hoping that it's going to be similar to what's been done. So you don't really have that much control over it. You can just ask another prompt and it'll be regenerated, and you need to cross your fingers hoping that whatever you like is still gonna be there, and whatever you wanted to change is gonna be changed the way you want to. So I kind of want to clarify what the session players are and make a comparison to what generative AI can give you instead. To do that, I've made 2 tracks. As always, remember to like and subscribe, and if you fancy supporting the channel, click on the Buy Me a Coffee link below, and let's see what the tracks are. When I make my videos, I always want to practice an aspect that I want to improve in my playing, and in this case, I wanted to practice some shuffled groove, and I wanted to practice some tapping, so this is the track that I've created. For all the guitarists, if anyone is interested in the tab for this track, there's a link in the description below. So to do this, I've created a drummer track, and I've chosen funk rock. So this is what Logic came up with. That is definitely not what I wanted to begin with. The first thing that I did, it was to get the swing of the part up. But that still doesn't sound good. Another thing that I always do is that I reduce the amount of fills and the fills complexity. I don't know why Logic always starts with the craziest drummer ever, and that still gets us to something that is not really what I want. So what I did is that I went into the manual section of the session player, and I've input the groove that I wanted the kick and the snare to play. It's way more simple than what it was, but it works way better with the part. And then what I did, I've adjusted the fill to taste, reduced the complexity, again, because I wanted the part to be a bit simpler. I divided it into 2 sections. This way the session player adds a fill at the end of the section. And then what I did is that I nudged the beginning of this section so the session player adds an intro fill. After I've done that, I've tried to use Chord ID to recognize the chords and create a bass part, but because I'm playing a riff rather than chords, Chord ID wasn't really effective. I ended up just playing the parts because it sounded better. So what I've done now, I've exported the track without bass and I want to import it into Moises. I know Suno might be a better choice, but I don't really agree with the ethic of that website, so I'm not going to use that one. I'm just going to use Moises. I've imported the track without bass and I've already created an AI bass. So the way you do it in Moises, you can just ask to add a track. You can choose what instrument to add, and then you have kind of like the genre. The process is similar to the session players where you can decide which session player you want, like if you want the funk rock or if you want the Motown. But in this case, the AI will do everything for you. I chose an AI match because I thought maybe the AI knows better than I. And this is what the AI has come up with. This is the bass part that Moises thinks goes with my track. This is not good, but let's try something else. I'm gonna mute this one. I'm gonna add a track. And in this case, I'm gonna try and put a prompt in where I say add a bass line that follows the guitar riff. It's gonna take a while, so I'm gonna speed up this. On another note, this is a better function of Moises. It's not a function that I like to utilize. Moises is a really great app. This is not a great function, but the rest of the app is still great. I've used it plenty of times. So it has generated a part, and let's see what it sounds like. Alright, once again, it's not a good part. This makes me think that the AI is not really aware of what is happening in the track. The app has analyzed the chords, has analyzed the groove, and is trying to match, but it doesn't exactly know what the guitar is doing, so it can't really follow it. So the next track that I made, I started with the groove that I wanted to utilize, so I actually immediately went into the manual section of the drummer and programmed in a groove that I wanted to play. If you recognize from which song I've nicked this groove, just write it in the comment section below. So that's kind of like the drum groove. And then I made my guitar part. And after that, I've analyzed the chords and I've created a bass part. And even with the bass player, what I've done is dial down the craziness. So I dial down the complexity. I've dialed down the octaves, and I've dialed down the melody. And of course, I told the bass player to follow the drum part. And here, I've just added a simple pad, like an organ pad. And this is what the track sounds like all together. I don't particularly like how the bass comes in. This. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna transform this into a MIDI region, and now I can go in and change. So I don't like that there's a double note there. Let's see how this sounds. And I like this much better. Another thing that I did in this track is that for every section, I've changed the intensity. So I started with 50, then it goes up to 60, and at the end is almost full intensity, and that kind of helps create a bit of dynamics. That's why I'm gonna ask the AI to try and increase the intensity in during the song. Now what I've done, I've exported the track without drums and without bass, and I want to see what the AI can do. So now I've already imported the track, and I got Moises to detect the key, the chords, and the tempo. It got the chords quite alright, and it got the tempo spot on. Now I'm gonna try and add a track. This time I'm gonna use a custom prompt, and I'm gonna say create a Foo Fighters like drum track that starts at bar 9 and increases in intensity. So the song this is where it was actually meant to start. So two things. First of all, it didn't start at bar 9. That doesn't seem to be aware of where the bars are. Second, the drum track is okay, but it's not what I wanted. So now I need to go in, write another prompt, and hope the brain of the app understands exactly what I want. Let's skip this for now, and let's create a bass track. I'm gonna use one of the presets. I'm gonna say electric standard. I think the bass line is better than the drums. It's very generic. I don't particularly like it. So immediately I can see two big differences. One is that with generative AI, I don't really need to know anything about music. I just need to be able to articulate a little bit what I want, and it will create something. And then I will have to ask again and again to change it, and I will have to make my prompt as precise as possible. But I also see the limitation of what AI really understands about music. Instead, with the session players, It might need a bit more scrolling. It might need more like searching for the grooves you like to start with, or it might need you to actually input a basic groove you want. Then the session player takes care of the fills, takes care of the hi-hat and the cymbals, when to play them. So if your understanding of how drums work is a bit limited, it's a great help. I can see that there's a higher level of customization after the fact with the session players, because I can turn everything into a MIDI region and then go in and actually reprogram everything, or like change the little details. Instead, with the AI, although I can choose just a bar or two like to regenerate, I will have to trust the AI to understand what I want. And if it generates something that is not exactly what I want, I will have to keep on repeating. That's why I don't see Session Player as bad as generative AI, because you can modify them endlessly using your knowledge of music, not dissimilarly to what you would do with a pack of MIDI grooves or any other virtual instrument you have. And from an ethical point of view, from what I understand, the session players have been trained using real musicians. The musicians have been paid. So I've seen interviews with the people that have coded the session players, and I've also listened to an interview on the Cory Wong podcast where one of his interviewee was telling that he was hired by Apple to be studied. So what they've done, they've taken real musicians, they pay them. So that's definitely not just somebody scraping the web for music and just training a generative AI. And that's why I think that the session players are not in any way similar to generative AI. Said that, let me know what you think about the session players. Let me know if you've used Suno and if you think that it's much better than Moises. As always, thank you for watching the video. Remember to like and subscribe. If you fancy support the channel, click on that Buy Me a Coffee link. And see you for the next one. Bye!